Remember this? Has everyone made their commitment? 20 bucks. At the dinner last night, Ann was able to, you may be interested to know that she was able to have people come up and they contributed $6,500 at dinner last night. Thank you so much. That's so cool. What's your name? Cord. Okay, good. Cord. And we got 50 bucks from Cord. Nicely done. Oh, Paul, this is just like church, isn't it?
Amen.
Yeah, praise Jesus. That's good. Thank you very much. So we made the commitment last night to Ann that we were going to set a target of $15,000, and I hope that between now and Friday that those of you who have not found it convenient to drop your 20 bucks in the jar, please do so. I'm going to bring out Ann Bailey right now. This is Ann Bailey Uncensored. I'd say that she needs no introduction, so she needs no introduction. Here she is.
Hi, David.
Any opening remarks, baby?
I want to thank all of you for your generous contributions to the Ashland home. From the bottom of my heart, I was overwhelmed, and thank you very much. That's it.
We pulled a fast one on her. The irony didn't escape me that you had said last night in your acceptance, your very gracious remarks, that you had spent the last 37 years sober. And the very next thing is Dean Martin comes out, how lucky can one guy be? Ain't that a kick in the head? What'd you think of that?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
That's good. All right, so a couple of questions. This is the title of this session is Ann Bailey Uncensored. And so Ann, as many of you, I guess most of you know now, that she's retiring at the end of this year. Retiring is, it sounds like the wrong word. She's stepping away from all of her full-time responsibilities associated with this industry, and she's going to devote all of her energies toward something else, which is just super. So the objective today is for us to just say, what are the parting words that you might have that are in Uncensored, because you've always been, I won't say always politically correct, but you've been politically sensitive, and you will present an issue in such a way that you will be aware of the various constituencies. But if we don't get it around the first or second or third time, then you go right for it. So let's just start with a softball. 3 years from now, what's this place look like? What's this industry looking like?
Unfortunately, I think it will look exactly like it does right now. And that is not a compliment. Because I think the industry is way too constricted and operating on way too much fear and way too much protecting the status quo. And I don't see it jumping outside the box anytime soon.
Well, there's a lot of initiatives that are going on around the country that would argue against that. Are these pockets of brilliance? Are they things that you think will be replicated, or do you think that we'll fall back into we're very different and it can't work that way in our market?
I think there are pockets of, I think the reason all these initiatives are happening is because the industry, and specifically the MLSs, have not delivered what the brokerage firms and the agents need to thrive and survive into the future, and so they've had to take it into themselves. And the challenge that we have in this industry is that we stand back, we don't do something, but because it's going to tick off the brokers or it's going to tick off the agents, or heaven forbid, our organization might go away and have to become something else, or we might lose our jobs. So therefore, let's not let anything happen. Let's put up the walls. Let's be protectionist. And whenever you do that, a void gets created, and I believe we've created void after void after void in this industry. First, it's no, we can't share our sold data. No, we can't put that up anywhere. No, we can't do valuations. No, 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 no. And the end result is that if the needs of the consumer and the brokerage firm and the agents are not being met by you, they will be met by someone else. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. I think that's what we're seeing with Upstream and the broker portal project, and everything that's going on is because there's so many pockets of discontent.
So, who then do you think will define the future of the MLS? If you believe that 3 years from now, nothing is going to substantively change, who's going to define that?
I believe it's going to be from outside the industry, because I do not believe the industry is willing to take the necessary risks to blow up what you have today that is working for today in order to create what is necessary for tomorrow. And I don't see the ability in the industry to balance continuing what works that people need day to day while creating what is necessary for the future. I don't see it. And I see, like, even with Upstream, great concept. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be 10 or 15 years before, if it works well and the technology's done well and it's implemented well and it's executed, it'll be 10 or 15 years before the whole country's on board. And by that time, there'll be something so far new and different from somewhere else, from outside the industry, that it will be obsolete before it's fully functional.
Wow.
You did say uncensored, right? And by the way, one of the questions that they asked me was, you know, I can say anything I want today because I don't care if anyone ever hires me again. As a matter of fact, I don't ever want to be hired again.
So I did give Ann a couple of questions just to say as examples to what they might be. But now I'm going to go a little bit off script. So building on that latest comment that you think it's going to be 10 or 15 years before something else gets started, what is the sacred cow? What is it that we believe is the sacred cow right now that should absolutely, each of us should go back to our respective markets, look in the mirror and say, we got to get rid of that?
I would label it terminal uniqueness. We're different in our market. Our marketplace is different. We are unique. We don't operate like the rest of the world. I've heard it from every one of you all across the country every time I come to town. And as a result, you can't get out of your own way to see what could be because you won't give anything up. And the tighter you try to hold on to something, the greater potential there is for it to escape you completely. And that's what I think is happening right now in this industry. And the brokerage firms are holding tight, and the MLSs are holding tight. And consequently, I'm afraid you're going to lose it all at some point.
Have you ever fired a client?
If I ever fired a client.
Have you ever been fired?
Of course I've...
Oh, actually, yes, you were. I do know.
I was.
That's right.
Of course I've fired a client, and yes, I have been fired. But, you know, I did learn an important thing from getting fired. It doesn't matter how good you are at something. If you're a royal pain in the ass, sooner or later they're going to kick you out.
So, have you ever fired a client?
I have fired a client.
Why?
Because I did not enjoy working with them. Because I didn't like their mode of operations. Because it didn't fit with my sensibilities. I don't know quite how to describe it, but yes, I have fired more than one client. And you know, one of the decisions I have had, one of the things that has come to me in the last 10 years is a tremendous amount of freedom. And that freedom has allowed me to pick who I want to work with, so long as I like the project, I like them, they would pay me the money that I wanted, and it fit in with my schedule. Now, I realize that I am so grateful for that doesn't happen for very many people, but the last 10 years have been the dream world for me. Thank you.
Many people may know this. I don't know that Ann has worked not exclusively, but almost exclusively with Tom and I as we try and build this solution out in the Mid-Atlantic. And did you ever think about firing us?
I thought about firing you a couple of times. Here's what David does to me. So we'll be in the middle of a discussion, right? So we're having this heated discussion about how things should be and what should happen and everything. And he'll look at me and say, "Don't you say a word, Ann Bailey. Don't you say a word." Because he does not want my input. And you know what I do? "Okay, David, I'm going to say what I think. And if you don't like it, you can fire me." Because I don't care anymore. I care about the job I'm doing for them. I just don't care if he fires me. As a matter of fact, a couple of months there, I was begging him to.
Well, it wasn't me, it was Tom.
Oh.
Right, Tom? I'm sure of it. So what is your proudest accomplishment that you've had in this unbelievable run that you've enjoyed? So
45 years.
45 years. Oh, honey, you look great. So 45 years. What's the proudest accomplishment?
No, I don't know that it's any one thing, but I would say the thing I'm most proud of is the trust that has been created. I think I have a tremendous amount of trust in the industry as a whole, with the brokerage firms, with the MLSs, with the realtor associations, with NAR, with the institutions. And I've been a confidant. I know more secrets about some of you in this room that you are going to pay me to retire and shut up about. But I think that trust, and I think, as you grow, because I came into this industry as a baby right out of college. And as you grow, you find your own footing. And I think being able to walk away from a lot of money when it presented a conflict of interest for me, understanding that there was a conflict and then walking away as the result of that. And I think that kind of created a tremendous bond for me with the people that I work with, and a lot of loyalty. And that loyalty goes always.
That's great. And I agree with you. Ann represents so many different people in this industry and different and, quite frankly, competing initiatives. And for you to build those walls that we don't know when we bump into a wall until I get those infamous words, "I don't know, you're going to have to ask him about that or her about that." Incidentally, we may have a couple of minutes toward the end of this presentation. We've got 17 minutes left for some questions from the audience. So for those of you who are thinking about the one question that I'm not going to get to, which I don't know what it is yet, but if you would be thinking about it, because I'm going to call on you. What's the toughest decision you've ever had to make?
I've had a couple of them. I think probably the toughest one, it was fairly early in my career. I was hired to take over a couple of plants, and the plants had way too many people, and within a 48-hour period, I had to lay off 125 people. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because these people were not bad people. They hadn't done a bad job. They were just that the company was losing money hand over fist, and it tore me up. So that was a really tough one.
So that's why you ended up becoming just an independent person, that all you had to do was go look in the mirror and say, "You're fired," right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's good. If you could do this all over again, if you could do a redo on the 45 years, is there anything you would have done differently?
I think the one thing I would have done differently was find a confidence in myself that came much later in life, even though I pretended to all of you that I had it for years. When I was working at Home Store as a startup, one of the things that I came to understand was, and it took me a while to get it, that if people talk about things in a way that I don't understand them, it's because what they're talking about makes no sense. And for a long time, I believed it was maybe I wasn't smart enough, maybe I wasn't educated enough, maybe I didn't understand enough. And when I came into my own on that one, that has changed the rest of my career for me because I really came into it. Thank you.
What professional accomplishment are you most proud of?
Professional accomplishment.
I know what your personal, well, you've probably actually got plenty. We just know about one. But what's your professional accomplishment?
You know, I think it goes back to the trust, and I think it goes to, you know, I've facilitated the Cove Group for the last, I don't know, almost 15 years. As an accident, it started as a little brain trust of just some brainstorming together. And what ended up coming out of that were a tremendous number of different initiatives that I really feel like they dropped the idea and I picked it up and ran with it. Whether it was we did the civic settlement or we worked on restructuring RESO for it to become the industries as a whole and everyone, or whether it was when we sat down and created the fair display guidelines, or whether it was when we created the contract licensing checklist for portals. All of those things, all of those initiatives go into it, but it isn't any one. It's kind of like just the consistency of being able to see what needs to be done and then doing it.
There's a lot of ways to ask this next question.
Uh-oh.
So let's imagine. This is going to take a lot of imagining on your part. But let's just imagine that you would be selected as the next CEO of NAR. And they were able to lure you out of retirement. And I guess there's probably a couple million reasons why you might consider it. But
not a chance. There's not enough money in the world.
Yeah, I'm channeling Anne Marie here. What would be different?
What would be different? You know, for me, I see NAR as advocacy. And I see advocacy as essential and critical. And I think it's something they do well, and I think it's something they could do even better on the national, state, and local level, and in a lot of different areas in between with all kinds of regulatory bodies. And I would put the bulk of my energies and my time into advocacy, 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 and find a smaller focus that led to greater results. And the other thing that I would say about it, and this also applies to all of you, customer first. It's not about preserving your organization. It's about doing what the customer needs. And I don't care whether that's a realtor association or an MLS. Independent businesses, and we have a lot of business partners and vendors in the room today, they don't get to make it by not putting the customer first. They have to put the customer first. And just because you're quasi-monopolies doesn't mean you get out of that. Because to the extent that you move away from the customer first, that's when everything starts to fall apart in the industry and the industry gets behind.
Excellent. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to take questions from the audience. How many MLSs do we really need?
You know what I think, David. I've been telling you this for a while. I think you need about 12 around the country, regional. I don't think you need 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 900, and I think you're all too stubborn to get out of your own way to make it happen. But I really think you need about 12, and I think those 12 need to cooperate with each other on certain things. And it's a lot easier to do with 12 to find a way to cooperate on certain things that would benefit all your members than it is when you're trying to get it past 6 or 7 or 8 or 900 MLSs.
So there's a number of markets around the country, and we're all trying various things. We're talking to our neighbors. We're saying, could we co-opt on certain programs and projects? Could we share data? Could we get a consolidated database? Could we merge entirely? Do you have opinions on, any of those that you feel are better or for worse? Is it by geography? Is it by market? Where does it all start?
I have opinions on everything, David. You should know that. I I do have opinions. I view data sharing at best as a stopgap measure that people use in order not to have to go to the next step, and it doesn't really fully resolve the issues for the brokers or the agents. I really see consolidation as the path to go on for the long run. I'm not saying there can't be some steps in between and some baby steps in between, but I don't understand why there's not a Northwest MLS and a Northeast MLS and a Southeast MLS. And if you look at the geography of the country, it's real clear to see where those different patches would be. And so maybe it's not 12. First, if we could get it under 100, that would be a good start, and then moving in that direction. But it is moving glacially. And you know, in the 80s, in the early 90s, it was moving more quickly. And then all of a sudden it came to a grinding halt. And the brokerage firms did not stop their growth beyond your boundaries. You just stopped your growth as an MLS.
Questions from the audience? Do we have any?
To make the MLS be what it would really be for the customer, what would it look like if I came out of retirement to make that happen? And you all did exactly what I said to do. So I would say, first of all, you have to run parallel paths. We are behind in this industry technologically. They talked about it on the last panel. The MLS is not easy to use. It's not as intuitive. You can't do things. When I go on other websites, I can order things in the middle of it as I'm going through and buy it and move on. I can get what I need at my fingertips, and we don't have that in the MLS today. We need to have a much simpler, integrated data and the ability to order different products and services right in the middle of viewing a listing or looking at public records, whatever that agent or subscriber happens to need. And that technology has to be done, and we have to have a better way to provide that. But we also have to have all of the data that they need at their fingertips. And it's a challenge to get it today. You know, there are a lot of different systems, and maybe eventually we do have different front-end systems, but people talk today about, like, in one market, we're going to have 6 different front-end systems. And I'm like, great. So the help desk gets a call from an agent, and the help desk goes, which system are you on? And the agent goes, the MLS system. I don't know which front end I'm on. Or even if there's a way to do it, now you've got a help desk personnel that has to be an expert in 6 different systems that the agent is using. So we've got to find a way to simplify it. And the gentleman who was up here earlier talked about that, and I thought that was just a great thought for the day. So I would simplify it, but I would also improve the technology. I would go to 12 MLSs in the country if I had my ways, and I would have those 12 have meetings a couple times a year, and maybe technical innovation teams where they were working on new projects together to work out together. And the other thing it would do, it would allow all the vendors in the industry to not have to redesign everything and remap everything for every one of your individual MLSs and try to figure out which one of you has which rules that they have to abide by that stops innovation in its tracks. And it would create an ability to really innovate from outside the industry that you could then use, and that's it.
Questions? Bob? Right, we got one here, and then we'll come right over there.
Just a comment. 2 of my favorite people on stage. Ann Bailey, no one has ever bugged me as much in my professional career as you have. But I respect you, I love you, and I'm going to miss you.
That's because I'm the only one who'll stand up to you and tell you when you're wrong.
For those of you who didn't hear that, Bob just gave Ann the ultimate compliment. Over here.
David, I like your question about where the industry is going to be in 3 years. I wonder what Ann's opinion is on where's RPR going to be in
Where's RPR and Zillow going to be in 3 years?
Oh, that's nasty. I'll take the easy one first, and that's Zillow. I think Zillow stepped into this marketplace when there was a huge void to be filled that all of the brokerage firms put their heads in the sand and refused to fill. And the MLSs went along with it and did the same thing. And so there became a huge void. And they came in and they innovated and they created something that the consumer wanted to do. I believe that they are going to continue to innovate and they are going to continue to deliver what the consumer needs, and that will enable the agents. The agents are going to continue purchasing products from Zillow because I think they're going to continue to innovate in a way that the industry can't. It's hard when you're a cooperative, and it's hard when you are more or less operate as a nonprofit, even though you may be a for-profit. But it's harder to be able to do that level of innovation. So that's what I think about Zillow. In terms of RPR, I'm going to give you two answers because I think it could go either way. If you have a new CEO who comes into NAR and thinks, what are we doing providing these things that maybe only 10% or whatever percent of our members are using and charging them all for? We need to either make this a standalone where it supports itself, or we need to spin it off and let it go off and operate it on its own and see if it can stand on its own 2 feet. So that is one path that could happen with RPR. The other path that could happen with RPR is they do an outstanding job of the upstream technology. They do great execution of that technology, and the industry usage of RPR goes higher and higher and higher until they reach a 30 or 40% usage level, at which time it makes total sense to continue to provide it as a realtor member service. So I think it could go either way.
Questions? All right, Ann, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say a word, and then I'm going to ask you to provide a one-word response to whatever I say.
I can't believe you can only use one word, and I know I can't.
Or it may be an acronym, okay? And just whatever comes into your CMLS.
Organized,
Cove.
thinking,
Brokerage.
business,
Agent.
service,
Association.
that's a tougher one. Advocacy,
Consumer.
demanding.
Consolidation.
Yay, team.
Upstream.
Potential,
AMP.
maybe.
I did ask for one word. Broker Public Portal.
Maybe.
Oh, that's such a
Cop-out?
cop-out. You want me to come back to those?
Not if you just want one word.
MLS vendors, partners.
Great.
Ashland House.
The best thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Who or what inspires you?
That's. I think what inspires me every day is to be able to, my friends and I all have a saying that we try to live by, and it's called love and service. And I don't talk a lot about it, But every day, that's what inspires me, is how can I serve today, whether it's my customer, or whether it's the person I meet in the grocery store, or whether it's the cable company on the other end of the phone that's ticking me off, and how can I not respond to that in an unproductive way. But it's every day about how can I find the path that I'm meant to walk on, and how can I deliver the service that I'm meant to deliver. And you guys have provided me with a tremendous forum to have a lot of learning lessons along the way in doing that.
Last question. This room represents the totality of your customer base in some way or another. There's 1 degree of separation between us and Ann Bailey and everybody in this industry, and you probably don't know that, or you probably never thought of it that way. What are your parting words for the people in this room?
You know, I guess I would say it's one of the things that I say to myself on a daily basis. You can do better. You are better than what's being done right now in the industry. You have the capacity, and you just need the willingness. And, you know, sometimes we all get caught up in fear, and I've certainly had a lot of fears to overcome in my life. But if we let go of the fear, and we're not afraid to fail, and we're not afraid to lose our jobs, and we're not afraid of our organization changing and no longer having a leadership position in it, we're not afraid of all of that going away. And if instead we're focused on serving and serving our customer, you just can't go wrong. And if you get out of the fear, you're going to be able to let all the rest go and step up. And I would say to all of you, you're smart enough, you're capable enough, you just need to step up and do it. And I would challenge you, I will come back to a meeting in 3 years if you made radical changes and you're under 100 MLSs. Otherwise, sayonara. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much, and I will be taking credit cards in the back of the room. Thank you.